Please stand and join me for Bells in the High Tower, number 56. Bells in the high tower, ringing o'er the white hills, mocking the winter, singing like the spring rills. Bells in the high tower, in the cold foretelling the springs upwelling. Bells in the cold tower, midst the snow of winter, sound out the spring song that we may remember. Bells in the cold tower, after the long snowing, come months of growing.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. It's great to have you this morning for what is a special service for us, our annual partner church service, celebrating a 33-year partnership with a congregation and really an entire Unitarian village in Felsőrákos, what is now Romania, formerly Hungary, and we became partners after the sort of end of the Cold War, so it's been 33 years, and we're glad to be able to share a bit about and celebrate a bit about this very unique relationship we've had with them for so many decades now. The bells that you heard, thus the bells that you just heard at the start of the service, were a recording of the bells at the Felsőrákos Church, which they ring every week before their services. And I think at other occasions in the village too, if people need to be alerted to something or whatnot, because they can hear those bells. So not something we do in a lot of our churches. I happened to, when I was in Louisville at the church I was at there, Clifton Unitarian Church, they had a bell tower inside the church. And there were 3 different sized bells in there with ropes hanging right down toward the end of the sanctuary, back where the entry doors were. And so generally the children would go back and help ring those bells. And nice ritual. So it brings back lots of memories and reminds us of another tradition. I'm glad to be back. I was gone for 4 or 5 weeks, I think, and enjoyed being away, but I'm always happy to see you. This includes everyone who's here, as well as the many of you that are streaming with us and Zooming with us today, too. So I'm going to forego sort of the usual words of welcome and just get right into the service, since I've said so much already. But great to have you all, and thanks to everybody. I think we had some wonderful services while I was away, including Madeline led a service, and church member Jacob Johns, and some guest speakers. So thanks to our guest speaker team for always doing such an outstanding job of bringing in such quality services, quality experiences for us. I do want to make just a couple of quick announcements here at the start. Following our services next Sunday, March 10th at 12:30, our pastoral care team is offering a Dementia Friends workshop. And that's to learn about what dementia is, but also what actions that we can take to support friends and family members who might have dementia or memory loss. And our own Cindy Fine, who's a former employee and now volunteer with Aging and Long-Term Care of Eastern Washington, is going to be facilitating that. It's going to be held in our chapel, which is right there in the back of our sanctuary. And you are welcome to bring a lunch if you want to attend, and there will be some light snacks provided as well. So expect it to last about 90 minutes. And again, that'll be next Sunday. And I know you're the early birds that are here today, and some of you, of course, are streaming and far away and can't make it, but anyone who would like to come back after our second service, we're going to be having an authentic Hungarian goulash lunch. And it's pretty good stuff. This is stuff that the team has been serving either at a dinner or luncheon for many years, and I can testify that it's very good. Might be a small donation if you'd like to do that, but you'd be welcome to come back later today to try some goulash. Okay, I do want to, I said hello to our friends on Zoom a little bit earlier, but I do want to give a special welcome to them as always. And there they are. Hi again, guys. Great to see everyone. Good to have you today. There they are.
Glad that you're back, Todd.
Thank you, Stephen. Good to be back. Thanks to everybody for holding down the fort, both near and far. Okay. Well, let's we don't want to bypass our opportunity to greet one another. So whether you're here in the sanctuary or streaming live with us or Zooming today, please take a few moments to say hello to one another. right, let's move forward now with the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found. And just on a quick note, talking about differences and similarities between Eastern Unitarianism and Western Unitarianism, the chalice is the symbol here in the Western world. They don't light a chalice in the Eastern world. Very, very different iconography and rituals than we have.
For the opening words, a quote from Thomas More. An enchanted life has many moments when the heart is overwhelmed by beauty and the imagination is electrified by some haunting quality in the world, or by a spirit or voice speaking from deep within a thing, a place, or a person. As mystics of many religions have taught, that sense of rapturous union can give a sensation of fulfillment that makes life purposeful and vibrant.
Please stand, join me for number 352, Find a Stillness. Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
We're now going to kindle our candles of care on behalf of those who are most on our hearts and minds. And my gosh, a lot has continued to happen in the world since I was away. And it seems things have only gotten worse in Ukraine and in the Middle East than they were when I began taking a month off a few weeks ago. Especially concerned about the conflict in our own nation, about how to deal with these tragedies, how to respond with these terribly violent and tragic circumstances. We can't seem to come together, which is only making it worse for those people. So we begin, as we have been, by kindling a candle on behalf of the people of Ukraine and that region of the world that are suffering from the violence there, as well as the people in Israel and the Palestinians who are suffering from the terrible circumstances there. And I do want to kindle a candle on behalf of our partner church in Felsőrákos. Some of them will maybe some of them are staying up and watching our service live today, but maybe they'll watch the recording of this. But it's so wonderful to have such a long friendship and partnership with all of you, and we extend our blessings to your entire community. And I did not, other than that, have any special requests for candles today, so why don't we take our usual moment of silence on behalf of those whom you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
Beautiful, thank you. Well, this morning's Time for All Ages is a story about a partner church, but not ours. This is a story about a partnership between a Unitarian Universalist church in Boise and Transylvania. And this is the congregation that Julie Jose was part of before moving to Spokane, is that right? So see if you can find her in the pictures. All right. This story is called Little Bridge. And we haven't rehearsed this before, so Todd and I will be talking here. Oh, perfect. So as you can see on the next slide, this was a collaborative effort with photography by lots of different people, a couple different people, the art and design. It was written by a couple folks, and it begins like this. So those are the people who were involved in the writing and photography. And here's our first page. Once upon a time, there were two groups of people who believed that everything in the world is connected. One group was the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, which was near a lovely river in Garden City, Idaho. The other was their sister church in the town of Mezco, which was far away in the beautiful countryside of Transylvania. They dreamed of a way to build a bridge of friendship between the two churches. The people in Transylvania were dreaming of their friends in Boise. They shared letters about their dreams. One day, a dream was born. It became Little Bridge. Little Bridge saw that there were wetlands on the beautiful land around the Boise church. The people put a board over the water to help them cross the stream to Jeremiah's adventure garden. There needed to be a safe way to cross. The people of the church in Boise began to feed and care for the dream of Little Bridge. They gave love and energy to it. Crane came to see Little Bridge. Crane picked up 2 heavy steel girders in its big, strong arms. It put the girders across the stream to give strength and power to Little Bridge. Little Bridge looked around the lovely spot and saw beautiful flowers that the people had planted. It was a sunflower house and dreamed of being tall. Little Bridge looked up at the clear blue sky. It dreamed of growing clear up to that sky. The people wanted to see Little Bridge grow. They began to carve posts with designs from Transylvania. They drilled holes for big bolts to help make Little Bridge strong. Little Bridge knew that many people from around the world would cross over this stream. Little Bridge could be a safe, welcoming path for everyone. One person thought that trolls lived under Little Bridge. He jumped into the water to see if it was true. He got wet and muddy. Little Bridge wanted to help people stay dry. Little Bridge got railings to hold people in its arms and keep them safe. The people made a roof like the ones in Transylvania with a crown on the top. Many people climbed high to help put on Little Bridge's crown. How proud Little Bridge was. It began to dream of tulip, a flower very special in Transylvania. Little Bridge wanted to dress up in tulips. People carved tulips into the railings and roof timbers. Do you recognize her? That was Julie. They also cut 2 other designs into the railings, but they are a surprise. Only very short people can look out through the cut holes in the railings, but everyone can find the surprise. See if you can find the surprise. Now, Little Bridge stands tall and beautiful. It is proud to be a bridge of friendship between the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship and their sister church in Mesko, Transylvania. The people wanted to make a great party to honor Little Bridge. Today is the day of the party. We will share Hungarian music and have a parade over Little Bridge. We will bring flowers and have special things to eat and drink. We will take pictures of us all around Little Bridge and send them to Transylvania. Today, Little Bridge will be given its own special name. Can you find the new name for Little Bridge? We'll see it in the picture. Take a moment to think of a loving thought that you could take across Little Bridge today. A loving thought for the world where everything is connected. The end, or a truly wonderful beginning. Right. So thank you to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship for creating that story and then sharing it with us. The next thing that we will see is a short video interview with the minister in Felsőrákos and her husband.
És a nagyszüleim nagyon egyszerű, de mégis vallásos emberek voltak.
Her grandparents are a very religious person. Her grandfather was a miner, and her relationship with God, it's very deep, because every day when he entered in the mine, he crossed his hands and prayed for the God, and in the end of the day, when he got out from the mine, then he crossed his hands again and thanked for the day and that he survived.
És nagyon kicsi korom óta azt láttam, hogy Istennel együtt élni jó, vagy nem tudom, tehát hogy könnyű legyen.
And Monica learned from his grandfather that living with the presence of God, it's very good and beautiful. When she was in 3rd grade, she fought with her brother, and the penalty from her grandmother was to write a letter with the title, "The Love of My Heart."
Én úgy érzem, hogy a Jóisten segített nekem megírni ezt a...
And Monica thinks that God helped her to write that letter. And her grandmother said that the letter was very beautiful and that the minister can't write such a beautiful letter.
Hogy akkor én pap leszek.
And then Monica said that if that's the case, then I will become a minister.
All right.
Ez a biztosít.
In 3rd grade. We are in the 21st century, but here in Transylvania, they are still conservative, traditional. There is a saying here that the woman needs to be in the kitchen, near the wooden spoon. It's changing. I mean, not all the congregation is like that. The most of the congregation, they accepted it and they are happy about that we are here, we love us. They are happy that that things are different now. But it's a very big difference in between a man minister and the woman minister. The men are more rational. I think that's my personal opinion, that a man minister can't open the gates of the soul like a woman can do it. Women speak differently about our souls and our feelings, and they can make us, the people of the congregation, to open up and try to tell our feelings too.
Celebrations.
They were celebrations here when Monica was taking the job. He was speaking. At the end of the celebration, everyone cried. I don't say that men can't do that, but it's more easy for a woman.
Egyszerre kell legyél miniszter, édesanyja, háziasszony, feleség.
They need to be minister, moms. They need to hold the house when it's a lot to do.
My God is very good.
Yes.
At helping her. We have a lot to repair. The case with the church is that because it's a monument, it's very difficult to repair it, and there are a lot of paperwork to the government to let us repair it. And the guest house, which you also contributed building it. We need to change the tiles on the roof, and we have another room at the guest house which is not used. So we had an idea that we should be making another kitchen there, because the kitchen which was made in the
Basement.
the walls are very, very wet. The walls are sucking the water from the ground, so it's very difficult to use that as a kitchen.
Yeah. Our suggestion. Okay.
Láttok?
No, I don't want to wave now. Yeah.
Now we'll play with the laptop.
For this morning's meditation, I invite you to consider the words of Lama Das. With every breath, the old moment is lost, a new moment arrives. We exhale and we let go of the old moment. It is lost to us. In doing so, we let go of the person we used to be. We inhale and breathe in the moment that is becoming. In doing so, we welcome the person we are becoming. We repeat the process. This is renewal. This is life.
Down the valley or the mountain I would roam. There is where I left my heart so long ago, when I was young, too young to know I'd miss it so.
Thank you so much. Just one piece of housekeeping. Is Alan around? Alan, can you? I just wanted to see if he might close the kitchen off. It sounds like that refrigerator is a Volkswagen starting up. We used to have yeah, that'd be great. If I don't know where Alan disappeared to, but he's there. He is? Oh, okay, good. Thank you, I appreciate it. We used to have a little timer that would shut that old refrigerator off during the service, so maybe we need to find that. So while they're doing that real quickly, about your vest, is that from, you want to tell us a little bit about your vest real quick? Because
Sure, I don't have the full story, but it was loaned to me this morning by Julie, who got it in.
Actually, there are some other people who were members of Westminster
Okay.
Church before the member joined here too, but she bought 2 whole outfits of that.
so these are authentic. This is an authentic pattern from
It's not
but from the Transylvania area. Yeah, great. And you've got a pattern on your shirt too, from Budapest. Can you stand up and show folks real quickly? Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
the real Felsőrákos stuff is on the wall when you get behind.
Oh, thanks for pointing that out. All right, so you can look around and see some of the traditional patterns. Okay, thank you so much for taking care of that, Carolyn. I appreciate it. And Alan for helping. So as I began contemplating this morning's sermon about the similarities between Eastern Unitarianism and Western Unitarianism, I realized that the differences, though interesting, are really insignificant compared to the important similarities. And this assertion really is almost incredible, considering that Eastern European Unitarianism was officially established in Hungary in about 457 years ago, and Western Unitarianism emerged separately just over 200 years ago. So really on very different timelines. The most obvious difference then is this vast distance between us, East and West, especially throughout most of history, right, where travel was nearly impossible. And especially between North America and Eastern Europe, because we were separated by oceans, language, culture, and in modern times by the Cold War until the fall of communism in the late 1980s, which is what made it possible for our partnership to become established. It's now easier and safer to travel across the planet than it had been for the past 2 centuries, at least of American life, although the vast geographic, linguistic, and cultural barriers still make it difficult for us to relate to one another. Yet, upon visiting Unitarians in Eastern Europe, including its small villages like our partner church in Felsőrákos, you will find, as the Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder song says, that people are the same wherever you go. This was really the most startling realization for me during my 2 visits there, that people everywhere are far more alike than we are different. Regardless of our many differences, there is one common humanity that unites us all and helps us communicate and understand and recognize each other beyond language and culture. Just this week, I read that Albert Einstein would not fill out forms that asked his race unless there was a space for him to write human. We are all part of the human race, and nothing helps us realize this more than being with people we initially mistake as different from us. And this should be especially so for Unitarians, no matter where we're from or what language we speak or how different our cultures, because Unitarianism is the theological belief in the humanity of Jesus, and thus in the goodness and potential of humankind. And Hungarians famously say, Egya Isten, which means God is one. But it's as much about their disbelief in the deity of Jesus or of Christ than their belief in monotheism's one true God. Yet they greatly revere Jesus and strive, rather than to worship him, to follow his humanitarian and his communitarian teachings. For it is only through our actions that we can create heaven on earth. Our actions. Another difference is our age again. Eastern European Unitarianism emerged from the Protestant Reformation and was formalized during the Renaissance, when certain liberal ideas, especially the idea of religious tolerance, were still new and received mostly with suspicion and often responded to with violence and persecution. Calling for tolerance then could get you killed. Western Unitarianism began during the Enlightenment, after the liberal ideas birthed during the Renaissance had been around long enough for people to seriously consider, and in some cases even put into practice. These values, as you often hear me say, are rooted in the fundamental belief in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and a dignity that is sustained by creating societies and systems rooted in freedom, reason, and tolerance. And so by the time of the Enlightenment, when these pro-human, pro-individual values were flourishing, the only question was, what systems could we put into place to guarantee them? It was no longer a risk, it's just how. During the Renaissance, most people were suspicious and fearful of such radical beliefs, especially of tolerance. Tolerance was an evil. Intolerance which forced everyone to think alike, was considered the only reasonable means of maintaining peace. Surely the freedom to express different beliefs could only lead to violent disagreements and to disorder, social disorder. The idea of tolerance was considered an obvious evil that itself could not be tolerated. Dangerous, lest it spread and disturb the peace. So it took a lot of bravery for our Eastern Unitarian ancestors to openly promote what has become the central and most necessary principle of any enlightened society. There's also a major theological difference you might have noticed in the video. Eastern European services are more like many Christian churches are here in the West compared to our Unitarian services. They always begin theirs with a reading from the Bible, which becomes its main focus. You won't likely hear Emerson or Mary Oliver read in a Transylvanian congregation. Although they believe Jesus was only human and that there is only one God, they very reverently speak of both. Western Unitarians, who again haven't been around as long, have more quickly evolved beyond the Christian roots that we were founded in, and would not describe ours as a Christian religion anymore. Although there are some Unitarian churches here that do, and almost all of our churches are open to occasionally benefiting from the wisdom of Jesus' authentic teachings, although many of us are more comfortable calling ourselves humanists or agnostics or even atheists. It's a big difference. In Eastern Europe, particularly Transylvania and Poland, where Unitarianism began, again, with an emphasis on Jesus' humanity, the belief that he was only human. Unitarianism is synonymous with what we call humanistic Christology, that Jesus was a man, and I would say, but a man. It rejects Trinitarian doctrine, or has at least come to reject Trinitarian doctrine because we were here first. It's often described as an anti-Trinitarian Christianity, if someone wanted to summarize it. Although the belief in Jesus' humanity existed for 300 years before the Christianity was appropriated by the Roman Empire, and the Nicene Creed formally claimed that the Father and the Son were one and the same, and 50 years later they threw in the Holy Spirit to the mix, and the Trinitarian doctrine was fully formed, and expressing Unitarianism became illegal. Saying God is one rather than three in one became illegal. Heresy. In the West, Unitarianism began with an emphasis on humanity itself, and was initially referred to as Arminianism, a belief that human beings are born with the capacity for good. It was a rejection of the doctrine of original sin by many of those who were the founders of American democracy. It was only later that its adherents decided that Unitarianism was a better term. And so we became Unitarian. So rather than relying upon the one God for which Unitarianism gets its name, its Western incarnation more readily relies upon human agency to make good things happen in the world. We are more devoted to human welfare than to any idea of God, be it one God or three gods or three-in-one gods. Unitarians in the East may have similarly evolved had it not been for the premature death of Hungarian King John Sigismund Zápolya, who died in an accident not long after adopting Unitarianism as Transylvania's official religion for the first time, and issuing the first religious toleration law in history. So after his death in that was in 1568, so after his death in 1571, not much longer, a Catholic, excuse me, goodness, I'm rusty. So after his death in 1571, a Catholic was appointed king who particularly disliked, I'm sorry, I've got this new smartwatch, and it's, let me just remember how to turn that off. Okay, do not disturb. Yeah, I've got this new dumb watch. As I was saying, so after his death, a Catholic was appointed king who particularly disliked Unitarians. And then when the Calvinists took over a few years later in 1605, they were willing to tolerate the Unitarians. Just to show you how the idea of toleration has shifted or evolved itself over the years. They were willing to tolerate the Unitarians, but they took 62 of their churches for their own purposes and required them to worship Christ, observe the Lord's Supper, and baptize infants, all of which were antithetical to our Unitarian beliefs and values. So our Eastern European brothers and sisters have been forced to express their Unitarianism, their belief in one God, in Jesus' humanity and human dignity, and in religious tolerance, under the cover of basic Christian orthodoxy. I think that gets at the root of why we've evolved differently. Again, this did not happen in the West. We were freer to let go of our old religious language and beliefs in favor of new ways of understanding, although we've never, until recently, abandoned the core values that make us religious liberals to begin with. Another difference, which I'm envious of, is that Unitarian churches in the East include everyone in the surrounding community. So not just those who go to church on Sundays. The Sunday attendance at our partner church in Felsőrákos is very small compared to the hundreds who live in the village. But it's considered a Unitarian village. And the church and its minister work for the welfare of the entire community. They exist for the welfare of the entire community. The very first item that we were asked to help them purchase when our partnership was born 3 centuries ago was a tractor. What's that?
3 centuries ago?
Three decades ago.
Okay, then I like
But just feels so long. Thank you for correcting me on that. Damn you. Before tractors were even invented. So again, the very first gift that they asked us to help them purchase 3 decades ago, 33 years ago, was a tractor. And you know, here in the West we would say, why would any church need a tractor? Well, they didn't. But the community needed a tractor. That's what the community needed. And that's what the church was interested in getting. It just shows a very different approach, a different attitude. And in communities here, there are many different kinds of churches, even in the smallest of towns, so it would be presumptive to think that one congregation represents everyone. But in what is now considered Romania, many villages which we would call towns, are mostly segregated by religion, Catholic, Reformed, and Unitarian, of which the Unitarians represent a very small minority, I think less than 5% of the population. Now, this is not to suggest that people of other religions are not allowed to visit or live in these villages, and it's different in the larger cities, only that they are predominantly comprised of one religion. It may be of interest to understand the designation village is a technical one that is determined by population. A city, which is much larger than a village, gets state funding, which its city council is then responsible for using in part to help support the surrounding villages in its cluster. So Felsőrákos is a village of, if I remember right, around 300 homes on streets and roads, not unlike our own, which have televisions and satellite dishes and a lot of modern conveniences. They are not living in huts under thatched roofs atop dirt floors. So the idea of a village could be misleading. Churches there also get state funding. Since Unitarianism is the minority religion, those of other religions have argued that it should not be considered a religion, nor receive funding, because it is not Trinitarian. So far, that's not happened, but they do not get near enough financial support to meet their needs. So they have to raise funds. Perhaps I should also say that the congregations there are not as autonomous as are ours. The Unitarian Church of Transylvania was founded in 1568. That's the sort of umbrella organization. Is the oldest continuous Unitarian religion in the world and has not adopted congregational polity. Rather, it maintains a hierarchical structure that includes a bishop, 2 curators general, and 5 archbishops, although there is much freedom within the confines of that system. So individual congregations do have some choices and a voice in the ministers that they select, those sort of things. Now, all of these, again, pale in significance compared to the important ways Unitarianism in Eastern Europe, particularly those in Romania, formerly Hungary, and those of us in the West, are similar. The most important similarity of all, as far as I'm concerned, is our unwavering and primary commitment to this principle of tolerance. To understand why I say this, it's important to understand a little bit more about Unitarianism's Eastern European history. Although its roots go back to the beginning of Christianity itself, when I say Unitarianism's roots go back to the early days of Christianity itself, I'll begin with King Sigismund's Edict of Torda in 1568, the first religious toleration law in history. And this wasn't purely ideological, but what was issued for very practical reasons. Since the fall of Rome, that was over 3 decades ago, I'm quite sure, Transylvania had been the gateway through which Eastern invaders like the Goths, the Huns, the Turks, and others entered Europe, and was a place with as much incivility as it had diversity. It was an epicenter of war and civil war, and by the time Sigismund was king, it had also become a battleground between the Lutherans and the Calvinists, along with some Catholics and Muslims, and was the gateway between the Ottoman Empire and Austria. Right? It was the land between these two, at least rivaling, if not warring factions from time to time. So religious tolerance wasn't a theoretical idea, but a practical necessity. In fact, it was the young prince's mother, Queen Isabella, when he was still a child, who drafted an earlier religious toleration law in 1557, stating, get this, 1557, that each person maintain whatever religious faith he wishes, with old or new rituals. while we at the same time leave it to their judgment to do as they please in all matters of faith. Just so long, however, as they bring no harm to bear on anyone at all. That's a smart mom. So 11 years later, her son, King Sigismund, organized the Diet of Torda to listen to all the religious leaders in the Hungarian kingdom and wisely chose Unitarianism, the religion based on tolerance. We need not think alike to love alike. And issued his famous edict soon thereafter. His Unitarian historian David Bombal says, in view of religious intolerance of dissent displayed throughout Europe at the time, this edict is a remarkable document designed to protect minority opinions and to keep the peace. The Edict of Torda states in part, we demand in our dominions there will be freedom of conscience. We demand in our dominions there will be freedom of conscience. Therefore, none of the superintendents or others shall abuse the preachers. No one shall be reviled for his religion by anyone, according to the previous statutes, right, Mama Isabella? The previous statutes. And it is not permitted that anyone should threaten anyone else by imprisonment or by removal from his post for his teaching. Unheard of. Unheard of. On January 14, 1571, at age 31, he officially recognized Lutheranism, Calvinism, Catholicism, and Unitarianism as received religions in his kingdom in addition to others that were, again, legally tolerated. Sadly, the next day, he was severely injured in a carriage accident, leading to his premature death only weeks later. Afterward, as I mentioned, the Catholics, followed by the Calvinists, were granted dominion in the kingdom, and the edict was undermined by anti-innovation laws that didn't allow any new religions or new ideas to be tolerated. All the others were grandfathered in, along with a general mood of intolerance, especially toward Unitarians. Sigismund's Unitarian bishop, Ferenc David, the real mastermind behind the Edict of Torda, was arrested for violating anti-innovation laws, expressing new ideas, saying something that had never been said before. Many called for his execution, but he was mercifully put into a cold dungeon instead, where he soon became sick and died only 6 months later. As I mentioned a moment ago, the Unitarians were allowed to exist, but they were extremely discriminated against. Their churches and rights were disregarded for generations. And as late as 1728, there was even a failed attempt to outlaw Unitarianism altogether. As Bombas succinctly explains, the government created a fund for the conversion of Unitarian children, decreed no non-Unitarian might marry a Unitarian, prohibited any public discussion of Unitarianism, forbade conversion to Unitarianism, closed Unitarian schools, and refused to permit any new churches to be built and any existing churches to be repaired. They were tolerated only in the most basic meaning of the term, but were not treated well or as equals under the law. Ever since, as mostly ethnic Hungarians, Unitarians there have been under the rule of various foreign powers and have experienced brutality, ethnic cleansing, and the denial of their right to express their own culture and speak their own language. Even today, the brilliant high school students, many of whom we support as part of our partnership in Felsőrákos, as well as throughout Romania, are at constant risk of flunking their state exams in order to move on to college each year because Hungarian is their native language and the region's indigenous language, yet the tests are administered in Romanian, the language of the country that has claimed the region only since the end of World War II. Hungary is rightly considered the birthplace of religious tolerance. And the United States has been said to have founded the greatest democracy in history. But today, such tolerance and the freedoms it demands are under threat in both places, as well as many others around the world. This is an unfortunate similarity shared by our respective countries in both the East and the West. Today, Transylvania, which is historically part of Hungary, then given to Romania by the Soviet Union after World War II, isn't much farther from Russia and Vladimir Putin's intent on recreating the Eastern Bloc than Ukraine is. The threat of losing their freedoms are very real. In the Western world, we are facing a new wave of authoritarianism on both sides of the political aisle. In the U.S. in particular, we're looking at the serious possibility of a populist despot returning to power by a political party that doesn't seem to care what's happening in the rest of the world so long as they can shut down the government here. I recall Trump voters in the last election holding signs saying, "I'd rather be a Russian than a Democrat." Given the inability of their now fractured party to lead or accomplish anything meaningful, and their failure to safeguard our freedoms on an international scale, they may get their wish. Meanwhile, liberals are continuing to cannibalize ourselves, destroying our institutions and organizations from within by accusing everyone around us of being the bad guy because of what they say, the color of their skin, their gender, their sexuality. We have become the very thing we once opposed. And many Western nations, including our own, are caught up in a civil war in which almost all of us, no matter what side of the issue we're on, rage against those with whom we disagree or who disagree with us by using powerful social media tools to destroy their character and livelihoods by lodging false information and accusations. I won't say more about this tragic situation now. Everyone knows what I'm talking about and how bad it is. Today, there's only one way out of this terrible milieu: to do as our Unitarian ancestors once did when such incivility was tearing their world apart. We must demand, as Queen Isabella and Prince Sigismund did, that in our dominions there will be freedom of conscience. We will leave it to their judgment to do as they please in the matters of faith, just so long, however, as they bring no harm to bear on anyone at all. Just imagine what our world and our communities would be like if, instead of considering those we disagree with our enemies, we tolerate our differences. The world would almost instantly become a far better place if we would only agree to disagree, like our ancestors did. Today, as Unitarians everywhere, both sides of the oceans, we must promote a renewed commitment to such civility and to peace through tolerance, the principle at the heart of the Renaissance and the Enlightenment from which our religion sprang. The Unitarian historian Earl Morse Wilbur once said, "The first and most essential of our principles is that of a generous tolerance of differing views." Today, our more than 30-year partnership with our friends and fellow Unitarians and Felsőrákos reminds us of where we've come from, of our unique and vital place in the world, of the direction we must go together, and of the shared values that will get us there. Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Please stand and join me for our last hymn.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Thank you.
Sometimes we make the process more complicated than we need to. We never make a journey of 1,000 miles by fretting about how long it will take or how hard it will be. We make the journey by taking each day step by step and then repeating it again and again until we reach our destination. Joseph Worthlin. Amen, blessed be, salam alaikum, and shalom.
Shalom.